Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of I Am Essence, where we share tips and feature incredible guests who help us transform and align with our best selves. Today, we are chatting with Kayla Stevens, Integrative Health Practitioner. She is 27, born and raised in Massachusetts. She studied kinesiology and health sciences at the University of Maine and went on to receive her master's from Georgia State University, now residing in Atlanta, Georgia. Her healing journey all began back in June of 2020 after a tick bite. Overcoming a battle of Lyme's disease, mold toxicity, and a few other obstacles along the way, this led her to finding her purpose in this world, self-discovery, and true healing. So, first of all, how are you? And I think it's so funny that social media has brought so many beautiful people into my life, and never in a million years would I ever think that it would be possible, especially in today's world, today's society. But the platforms that are out right now, especially with TikTok and Instagram, they have their pros and cons. But when we use them to our advantage, we can, again, just really and truly show up as our authentic self. And we're able to connect with others who resonate with us and just continue to inspire those around us. So I'm just so happy that we connected
I know.
through TikTok. And again, just never in a million years would I think that social media would bring just beautiful people into my life.
Right. But like, it's funny because I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I love TikTok. I
I
hate social
know.
media, but I love TikTok
Same.
because
I know.
you get to really like cater it to what you want to see. And then you connect
Exactly.
with people that are on the same wavelength as you, like
Exactly.
interested in the same stuff. Because a lot of people in my real personal life, when I started going on this healing journey, like
Mhm.
they don't know what I'm saying. Like they support
No.
me, but they can't have a whole
They're
conversation about it and
exactly.
understand what I'm saying. So it's so important to have this community online and be able to turn to other people that
It's
have
true.
something
And
in common with
and
you.
that's what I love about your page and your platform, where you show up as your authentic self. And if you are struggling, you're not afraid to say, "Hey, today was a bad day. I'm struggling." And you take us through the whole story, through your healing journey, where we're able to be in your position and be in your shoes.
Yeah.
And I feel that with TikTok, it allows us to be authentic and be who we are. Where sometimes on Instagram, it's kind of like, oh, I have to hide behind a picture and people
Yeah. I
just have
agree.
to
I don't even do
it's
the
very
Instagram
different.
thing. I
I don't
can't
blame
even
you.
do it.
I don't blame you. I pretty much take my TikToks and then just download them, get rid of the watermark,
Hmm.
and then just upload them to Instagram for reels. And I'm just not the type of person that's going to hide behind a picture. It's like, this is me. I don't even have makeup on. I mean, I have mascara on
Yeah.
right now, but that's about it. I'm working from home, so I'm not going to put a full face of makeup on because who
Yeah.
who am I really going to impress? If you love yourself and love where you're at, that's all that matters in life.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought up the makeup because I never put on makeup to like go on TikTok or anything. So I'm like, if I'm just
Exactly.
sitting in my house, like every once in a while, if I'm in the mood, I'll do it because
Exactly.
what makes me feel good. But normally I don't. And like, I'm not afraid to get on there. And so I'm glad you pointed that out because I feel it's so important when you're on this type of journey to like be realistic. Sometimes when I'm
Mhm.
posting, I've been really in this positive mindset lately. So I feel like I'm
Mhm.
posting so much positive. And I'm like, that's great because that's how I'm feeling. But I'm like, okay, I need to like make sure I'm actually showing what's really going on because I want to be
Exactly.
relatable. I don't want to, people don't want to see the not relatable. They want to see people that are going through the exact same thing as they are. They don't want to feel alone. And that's kind of like why I started sharing it. And so I don't, ever want to become that person that's like not showing up as myself because that's not the point.
Exactly. And that's not who you are. And I
Yeah.
love what you are doing. And we're able to relate to that. And yeah, you are building such a beautiful
Oh
community.
my gosh,
So
thank you.
you are so welcome. So have you always been in this sort of positive mindset?
No.
Thank you for
Not at
your
all.
honesty. Thank you for your honesty.
Not at all. And honestly, a lot of people in my real life, like besides my very closest friends,
Exactly.
would
Yeah.
probably say that I'm like negative. They honestly would.
Really?
Yeah. And I think,
Really?
people that don't know me the way they know me, that haven't like really honed in and watched this journey would probably be
Mhm.
like, she's miserable, she's negative. Because I mean, you have no idea what I just went through. It takes time to like come around. And
Yep.
I think the positive I've really come into more of a spiritual journey now that I've got into a better place with my physical health. But it wasn't always like that. I would say maybe 6 months ago is when I really started changing my mindset a little bit. And then honestly, even just the last few months, I've seen an even bigger shift in like, okay, I can actually take negative and turn it into a lesson and understand like its purpose.
So
Anyway.
take me back to June 2020 when your whole healing journey began. What happened? Where were you in life? Because you were saying that you weren't in this positive mindset. So how did you connect those two pieces?
So in June of 2020, when I first started my healing journey, it started because I got extremely, extremely sick really quickly with Lyme disease and like 9 other tick-borne infections. So it was like a plethora of things, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that's what was going on. And at that point in my life, I had just started grad school that year in January. I was living with my boyfriend. We're still living together now. And I was just heavily drinking and partying. And this was like, in the beginning of the pandemic, like things were just weird back then. But before that, like I never really adjusted to like post-college life. I'd actually been out of my undergrad for 3 years and I never really adjusted. Like I'd moved to a different city. I was still trying to make new friends. So like for me, doing that was going out and partying and drinking because at the time I thought partying friends were my real friends and I didn't know the difference back then. And so I've always been known for a very long time as like the party girl, and I can always stay up late. I'm always down to go wherever. I love adventures. Obviously, I'm not in the same space anymore, but that's kind of where I was at when the healing journey began. So I think when it all started, it happened so fast, and it took me some time to figure out what was going on and get a proper diagnosis, get doctors to listen to me. So that was like a very much like dark night of the soul kind of situation. Like it was so dark for me during that time. So yeah, so it was very different from where I'm at now. But I will say, like, I'm happy with myself now, but it took me, from the better half of the last 2 years to even get to this spot.
So going back to June of 2020, when you were first bit by the tick. So when I was growing up, so I'm from Jersey and I don't have grass on my property.
Right.
We just have a driveway.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So, but my cousins, they lived up in North Jersey. And then I had family that lived in South Jersey where there was a lot more land. So my sister and I guess my mom would sort of put a little bit of fear in us when we would go visit, saying that, oh, you guys have to be careful. There's going to be ticks, there's bugs, because that was never something that ever crossed our mind. And as soon as we got into the car, or right before we left to go home, we would go into the bathroom and we would do a tick check. And my mom would do like a crazy tick check just to make sure that we were okay. So was that something, so were you brought up in that same environment to be aware of ticks when you were going out?
Yeah. So yes and no. Like I grew up in Massachusetts, and before I moved to Atlanta, where I am now, I went to college in Maine, and I was there for 5 years total. So it's super common up there in general. Like my whole life, I knew about Lyme disease. I knew about ticks. And so we were aware of them. And, we did tick checks. I would say looking back, probably not as much as I would think now. Like I feel like living in Maine, I was never like, I was in college and I was never a big hiker or anything back then. So I was never like checking myself or anything, but I probably should have been. So I was always aware of it, but I will say there's a lot about Lyme that's very misunderstood. And so it's one of those things that you just don't even realize how intricate it is and like complicated it is until you either go through it or someone that goes through it. Because I know a lot of people from my college years that have Lyme disease and they just took antibiotics and they're fine because they caught it really quickly and they maybe only had one type of, Lyme and not all of the other co-infections. So it's so different for every person. So I feel like I didn't really know anybody growing up that had this situation this bad, which would have probably made me a little bit more cautious.
Exactly, which makes sense. So what was your protocol and healing experience like? I guess because it's been a little lengthy, but let's get into that first portion of when you first started experiencing symptoms.
Yeah. So the first portion was pretty intense. I mean, I thought I was bit by a spider. I had a tick bite and I had the bullseye rash that people get.
You did.
And I grew up in New England and I still thought it was a spider bite. Like what? But it's because I'm in Georgia. So I'm like, oh, they convince you they don't have ticks here. Like that's what society says.
Because it's the South. It's nice. It's warm. It's
right. They don't have that. It's a New England thing. Not true at all. So I thought I had a spider bite, which made sense to me. So I went to the ER a few days later with some flu-like symptoms, and they basically said, okay, spider bite, here's a couple antibiotics. You'll be good in like 2-3 weeks, whatever. So I go home thinking I'm going to be fine. And then it just kept getting worse. I thought I was being like poisoned by the antibiotics. Like I was having panic attacks. Never had one in my life, by the way. I was having panic attacks, thought I was dying. Like something was going on like in my body that I could not even explain to you. And it happened really fast, like within 2, 3, 4 days after that first ER visit. Like didn't even make sense how quickly this happened. So then I kept going back to the ER only because like urgent cares kept telling me to go there, like not because I was trying to like use up other people's resources in the middle of the pandemic, like they were, I was being referred.
So this is all going on as COVID is,
this
as the
June.
World is shut down.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm in Georgia, so things were a little
bit more open
at the time, which it plays a part in the story, which I'll explain after. But so I had ended up in the ER 3 times. The third time, I actually at this point had gone on TikTok. I didn't use TikTok the way I use it now, but I had it. And I started researching Lyme. I don't know what made me turn to TikTok, probably because the internet just doesn't have a lot about it. And I was like, I think a friend maybe mentioned like, are you sure it's not Lyme? So I start researching on TikTok. I find a good friend of mine now on TikTok, and she's talking all about Lyme disease. So I start messaging with her and she's like, that's Lyme. Like that is exactly what happened to me. So I go to the ER that third time and I say, listen, I think I have Lyme disease. Like, can you tell me where I should be going, what I should be doing? Basically, I was so gaslit by the whole system. This doctor starts like laughing at me, telling me,
don't you
like,
just love when that happens?
I just like,
this blows my mind.
You know what? I've been very, maybe sheltered from how rough the healthcare system is my whole life, because I, believe it or not, before this had like no health issues, like none. So I'd never been to the ER before. Like never been to the ER. So I was like shocked that I'm like, I'm coming to you for help and you
want to tell me I'm
nothing to say to me. Like I was appalled, like, which I mean, maybe is pretty, like I was just sheltered. Okay. So basically he's like, we don't have ticks in Georgia. Like they're laughing at me. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? And I was like, also they knew this, that I grew up in New England. So,
you're exposed
maybe I had it previously. Like, I don't know. So they did refer me to an infectious disease doctor, but they really, really made me feel like I was wasting their resources, which is a terrible feeling because I was referred there. 2, I thought I was dying. And then they kept writing it off as I was having panic attacks due to the pandemic. And listen, I was doing fine. I know this like sounds like I was doing fine. I was getting unemployment. Like, listen, some of us were just kind of riding during that time.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I haven't had a break from work or anything. Like my school went online. I was like, obviously I was concerned for the state of the world, but like, I was not having panic attacks.
No, we had those two. You could have used COVID and this situation as in two different directions, where you could have sat there and sulked and said, oh, why poor me? Or you could have used it for your benefit to propel you into that next chapter of your life.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I was doing. Like I was taking a break, but I was, I was still in school, and my work was all shut down and all of that. And I was also working for a hospital. So they had put me on leave for a while. So anyways, and I was drinking back then. So I was just drinking wine on Zoom with my friends, and I like lived with my boyfriend. So I wasn't alone. I was not like miserable.
You're having a good time, which you deserve. You work hard.
For real.
So why not take advantage of this time off?
That's exactly what happened. So anyways, the whole point there went off on a tangent, but they were just trying to convince me, like, no matter how much I was like, no, this isn't normal me. I know this isn't me. They were like, no. And like, this was the point I was calling poison control, thinking the antibiotics I was having allergic reactions. I was on the phone calls with pharmacists being like, all these things. Like I was freaking out, doing the most. So they refer me to the infectious disease. after running all these tests on me, telling me I was normal. So I'm like, I was having heart palpitations. Like my heart was beating out of my chest. They did, I don't know, EKGs and normal, chest x-ray, normal, blood work, normal. Like everything was showing completely normal. So I go to infectious disease. He tells me he's from Maryland and he studied in Maryland. So he really understands Lyme disease. And I'm like, oh, great, perfect. Yeah. And so he did say it did sound like Lyme. He did some blood work and it came back negative, that I had nothing. And he said, chronic Lyme isn't really real, essentially, is what he told me. And I knew something was off.
But he's a specialist.
Oh, right. He knows, yes, infectious disease doctor. And he claimed he knew so much because he studied in Maryland and there's Lyme over in Maryland. Nothing surprises me now that I'm like looking back on this like situation. But at the time, like I knew something felt off when he said like, chronic Lyme isn't really a thing, something felt off, but I just like didn't know how to stand up for myself, like in the medical system. I didn't know how to advocate because like I said, I've never been in this situation. So he keeps just throwing antibiotics at me while we're waiting for test results. They keep coming back negative. He then tells me that there's no way I could have Lyme based on the tests that he ran and that it must be West Nile virus. So I was like, that makes no sense. So he suggests a spinal tap to me. At this point, I've been online. I've been making connections and friends with people. I know that
you're starting to be your own health advocate at this point.
At this point, I'm like, okay, like I didn't really know how to stand up for myself, but like I knew based off of the information I collected, I was like, no, this is not right. And so I actually had made a local friend who had a very similar situation to me, but years prior in Connecticut. And she told me that she'd done a spinal tap to test for Lyme because back then, in order to do IV antibiotics for Lyme, when it was, less studied and known, they like made you do that. That was like a requirement. And so she told me she's never felt the same since then. So I have another friend, I just know people have gone through this procedure and they're like, if you can avoid it at all costs, don't do it. So he's suggesting a spinal tap. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. I just knew. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe that's when I started really standing up for myself. I was like, no, I know I cannot do that. So basically I just remember going home after that last appointment with him, just like falling on my bed and crying, being like, I've never been in this situation to where the people that are supposed to be helping me are not listening to me. And so then I was like, okay, I can go back home to Massachusetts and try to find somebody there that might understand this a little bit better because I know, like, I just knew it was Lyme, like 100%. A family friend ends up hearing what's happening to me and he had dealt with Lyme. And very similar situation to where he was misdiagnosed with like everything under the sun, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, because he'd get tremors. It's something I experienced too, like everything. He had lymph nodes removed, like insane stuff. And after like 10 years, he finally got the real diagnosis and got a lot better. So he helped me, set me up with his doctor, and she got me a proper blood test, which if you're listening to this and you suspect Lyme, I did the IGeneX blood test.
Yes,
you have to pay out of pocket. Yeah, you have to pay out of pocket.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
But keep going because then I'll fill you in on my experience with Lymes too.
So yeah, did the IGeneX, but I didn't do the full co-infections panel.
Okay.
I just did, do I have Lyme, yes or no? Because at the time,
at this point,
that's just like really what my doctor and I were like, we just need to know. And she immediately got me on the proper antibiotics, which you would use looking back, like now that I know so much, because this was 2 years ago. So it's August of last year. So this was like, by the way, this was like a 3 or 4 month span at this point. Of me trying to find someone who believed me. Yep. So, which I'm lucky and fortunate for, by the way, because most people go years. And so she gives me on the proper antibiotics for Lyme bacteria.
And was this the same round of antibiotics that you were on at from the first doctor, or every? No. So every time it was a different.
Yeah, it was some different. Yeah, I mean, probably all did similar things, but doxycycline is pretty common for like acute Lyme. And so that's what she put me on, which maybe I had been thrown that by the other doctors. I honestly don't remember. There were so many different ones. And so we took like 3 weeks, we get the test back and it was extremely positive. I don't really remember because we were like, is it chronic or was it acute? And for some reason we determined it was kind of a gray area of which we couldn't really tell. So we were going with acute at the time, because at the time I got bit, I had the bullseye rash, which I thought was a spider bite. And this was like 3-4 months later. So to her, it was still acute. So to keep a long story short, I stayed with this practitioner who truly, like, I thank her for this so much. For 16 months on those antibiotics. And
wow.
I will say we switched them around. We went high dose of different things to target different stuff. And it definitely helped and got me to not really a functioning place, because it wasn't really functioning. I was like working and doing school from home, but like I was not having panic attacks every day anymore, really. And I will add that I was on anti-anxiety, like emergency medication every single night for this entire 16 months, which I no longer take. But at the time, like, I needed it. I couldn't sleep like if I didn't take it. So just looking back, like, I wish I really investigated a little bit more about like natural options, but I just truly didn't know better. And so then finally I was like, I'm not really getting better with antibiotics. There has to be more to the story. So I think that protocol I was on would have been really amazing if I was just dealing with Lyme bacteria. But like, as I stated earlier, like I was dealing with so much more. We never suspected or tested for that because we thought, I don't know. We just didn't.
The acute.
So turns out now, like, I don't know. I just really appreciate and approve of natural remedies now. But basically that was the story from beginning to end of my Western medicine situation with it. Yeah.
So were you raised in more of that Western medical view?
I would say yes. My stepmom is a nurse, a NICU nurse, but she's actually quite holistic in a lot of things as well.
Really?
But I think that kind of came in my adult life. So I've always been like open to holistic measures. And honestly, I went to college for kinesiology and health sciences, and we did a lot of like, I learned a lot of preventative and like nutrition stuff. So I think I really started questioning things back then, but I didn't really, like, I've always been like pretty into nutrition and just healthy living, but definitely not to this extreme. I will say, like, until a few years ago, I probably would be one of those people that was like, oh, I'm crunchy people. Oh my gosh, and now I'm like,
I'm the
now I
granola
live
girl.
it.
Exactly.
So things really changed, but like, yes, growing up, I would get strep all the time. Like, looking back, like, things make a little bit of sense, but I was getting strep all the time, ear infections all the time, immediately to the doctor, antibiotics. That's it. Like, so yes, I was essentially raised the normal Western medicine way.
So as you were going through all of these rounds of antibiotics, were you taking any natural remedies, or it was just straight antibiotics? Let's see if this works for me.
Oh, good question. Actually, yeah, I was 2 summers ago. So like pretty immediately before I think I even knew I had Lyme, I was taking different supplements. Like, I was researching supplements all the time, and I was taking a few different herbs that I'd read were good for Lyme, not under instruction of any of my doctors. I just was kind of like, which I don't really suggest doing that, but I just was so interested in it that I was like, I'm going to try all these things. And so, yeah, so I think a little bit I started to incorporate it. Looking back, I didn't even realize that I did, but yeah, I did.
Did you find that they helped a little bit, or at what point came your holistic transition?
So I think, honestly, I was taking so much stuff and I was just really in the thick of it that like, I couldn't tell you if anything was working at that point, because I didn't even see any sort of huge change in my health, probably till I switched to completely holistic, honestly. Yeah. And it was hard because people didn't really understand why I was still sick. Like, like I was so people around me saw the big difference when I went to this other treatment I did. So I think my holistic switch really happened probably a year in. I started less than a year in, actually. I had followed this girl on Instagram. Her name used to be Love Your Quirks. Now it's something divine. I can't remember. She changed her name. But anyways, I seen she went to this place called Lyme Stop, and she was just talking about it all the time. And I was just following her journey, and something about it really resonated with me. So I just started messaging with her. And then I listened to this podcast episode that the doctor was on. And I listened to this podcast episode like 4 or 5 times. Like I was like, I just like feel obsessed with this for like, I can't explain why. I was like, I need to go see this doctor. And so it took me a while to like really bite the bullet, because it's a 6-month waiting list. It's money out of pocket.
Yep.
And I mean, as most Lyme treatments are, but I just was like afraid. I guess it was still something like I was afraid if it didn't work, because I had to go off the antibiotics.
Exactly. And you've been on this journey for
so long.
I was a year and a half. Point, by now it's a year and a half, what it seems like, or what it sounds like.
It was a year when I really started considering getting on the wait list. So, but I had stayed on my other protocol until I went there. So finally in like June-ish of 2021 is when I finally was like, okay, I cannot live like this anymore. I just have to take the chance. Like what's the worst that's going to happen? Like I go back on antibiotics, which I will never do. Now that I
amen to that.
I know. But so I finally signed up and I went. I was just, what it was really scary for me. It wasn't really the lack of antibiotics. It was that they did bring me to a place where I wasn't having panic attacks every day. And if you've had a panic attack, feeling like you're dying and like, you don't really know why, like, because for me, it really truly was the pathogen in my brain, causing it. Plus on top of that, the medical anxiety, not knowing what's going on in my body, like all adds up. And I didn't want to like feel like that consistently again. So I was afraid if I took myself off the antibiotics that all of that would come back, which I did still have severe anxiety, but it wasn't, I need to go to the hospital, I'm dying anxiety every day. So it was, that's really why I think I was scared deep down. And then, so I got on the wait list and I went in November of 2021.
And what was that protocol like for you?
So that was not even that long ago. What month is it? It's August. Okay. So that was, so it was 8-9 months ago. And
so it's recent.
It wasn't that long ago. And I had to go off everything else.
Did they take you through a detox period?
So at this point I had been detoxing like for so long.
Okay.
That no, but they do recommend after their treatment, to be doing saunas and that kind of thing. So they kind of recommend it. Most people kind of work with, their doctor along with them. I honestly just worked with them because at this point, like, I just felt like I knew so much. I have a functional medicine doctor actually, but I kind of just took a break from them to do the 4-month protocol and see where I stood. So I went, there wasn't really a detox period. Basically it's very holistic, very homeopathic,
I love
non-invasive.
That. Yep.
No like needles involved, like nothing. It's crazy. It's all muscle testing, muscle energy testing.
I love that.
I know. And I'm
all for that.
I had never done anything like that before.
So this is all new to you.
I mean, I told you I listened to this podcast like a million times. And so I was prepared. I was also in a Facebook group of people who have done it. So like I was prepared. I knew, what I was going into, but I had never experienced it myself. And it was crazy, the amount of stuff he told me in such a small amount of time. And a lot of stuff started to make sense. Like he had told me, the 10 different Lyme related infections, which some are viral, some are parasitic, some are bacterial. So made a lot of sense as to why I was not getting better on just antibiotics. And it never was going to do that for me. Then I asked him, because I'd heard he can tell this information, how long he thinks that you've had it. He told me I got originally infected in 2015 and I was infected again in 2020, which I was living in Maine, going to college in 2015. Exactly. So, and the way I got so sick so fast, like doesn't really happen like in acute cases. I feel you don't start just thinking you're dying like 2 days. Well, I mean, maybe you do, but I haven't heard of that. So it was so much more than just
there's something
flu-like
that
symptoms.
Exactly. There's something that set it off, whether it be stressful, like you don't know.
So it seems like it was laying dormant, and then, I got bit and just, it exploded within like a week, which it all made so much sense. And I think at first, I was really kind of, I don't know why. I think I was a little depressed to hear that information. I was like, I've been living with this for so long and I had no idea. But now
You've been
looking
living a
back,
completely
I'm
different
like,
story.
you know what? This was going to happen, whether it happened in 2020 or happened in 2030. Like this was going to happen.
At some
Something was going to
point.
come up. At least it happened during the pandemic. I was able to,
Exactly.
take my time. I mean, I'm still
Mhm.
healing. Honestly, there's still more to my health journey. So I don't know. It just seemed like it was going to happen. So like I'm glad it did the way it did, I suppose, and I'm glad that I was in a place where mentally, I guess, where I could
Mhm.
stand up for myself and
Could
really
be safe.
fight to get answers, because a lot of people can't. Like a lot of people can't do that when they're in that state.
It's true. And who is
Yeah.
your biggest support system? Because in COVID, everything was shut down, but you did say that you weren't living alone,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yeah. So I've been living with my boyfriend this entire time, which has been great because he's been supportive. But I mean, also it's been hard because he just
Yeah.
watched me change,
Yeah.
go through.
So how did that affect your relationship, if I may
Yeah.
ask?
So I've been asked this question before, actually,
Really?
on another podcast I did. And I was like, it's hard because I almost feel like we had to like rebuild a lot because I
Mhm.
was so sick and not myself for so long. And so I feel like it seemed like I changed so much, which I mean I have, but I mean in a good way. Looking back, like now I feel like I've
Mhm.
changed in a way I'm happy with. But at the time, like I was just miserable, like, and like no one else can really, like, Lyme is so crazy. Like people
Mhm.
can't really understand it if they haven't been through it. So I don't know. It's definitely made things more difficult. I mean, we were only together. We were together less than a year when I first
But
got really sick. So, I
okay.
mean, it definitely, I feel
It
like, took
really
away.
shifted the relationship.
Yeah. And I feel like it felt like a lot of stuff was kind of stolen from us. Like, we were still like in our
And
earlier
that,
mid 20s
yeah.
then. And so I don't know. That's a really hard question because I feel like we're obviously in a fine place, but
Mhm.
there were times where it was very hard because he just like
Didn't know what to
truly
do.
doesn't know what to do. And I was like, well,
Yep.
I need more help, but like
Yep.
I don't know how anyone could help me. So I think it was probably really a hard situation for him to be into.
Mhm.
So I always try to look at it that way, like, okay, well, like he went through it too, just differently. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
No, but I think it definitely makes both of you guys stronger. And
Yeah.
if you can come out of that together, it's going to set your relationship up for success in the future. Because
Yeah.
if you guys can get through this, you guys can absolutely get through anything that comes your way.
Yeah. Such a good point. Yeah. I like that.
Especially early on in a relationship where he could have bolted. He could have been
I
like,
know.
"Oh, we just started dating. It's not what is in it for me." No, but he
Right.
stuck around. So that says so much about him.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Has this affected any of your other relationships, like friendships or
Oh my
even
gosh.
family?
Oh my gosh. I've like lost so many friends. Like now I'm in a place where I can just look back
You
and I'm
are
like,
preaching to the
whatever.
choir. You are
Yeah.
preaching to the
I know
choir.
you understand.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to that so much. Because of having Epstein-Barr virus, it's very similar where
Mhm.
your friend, I don't drink. So even just go, like, I'll go out, I'll be social. I don't feel all that I need alcohol to have fun, but even just going out to dinner, I'm the friend that's like, okay, I'm gonna get this, but we're gonna modify a lot of things. So it
Yep.
may take me like 20 minutes to get my order out of my
Same.
mouth.
Oh my gosh. It's so
But it's about who you're with, not what I'm eating, not what you're eating. Hey, if you want to eat the burger, by all means eat the burger. But I know if I eat the burger with the bun and the cheese and everything, I'm not going to be feeling good tomorrow when
yeah.
I wake up. So yes, I am going to eat the salad with grilled chicken, but after this meal, we're going to go out and have a great time. And that's all that matters, is who you are surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. That's such a good point. I mean, I feel like when I was really going through it, probably for the first year, I lost so many people who I thought were my friends. Like I couldn't
Yes.
really, honestly, I feel like I couldn't really differentiate back then. I mean, I was 25 when I got sick. I
Mhm.
still thought you're supposed to have a million friends. Like
Yes.
that's like really what I thought. And
Yep.
I took it so personally that so many people didn't stick around, but I'm like, okay, looking back, I'm like, it doesn't matter if they left during this or this didn't happen to
It's
me. We
true.
weren't that good of friends. They weren't gonna, now I have like my great few friends that stuck around, and like I'm so happy with that. But it took me a while to like reframe that to this. But I think it was hard because I look to people for guidance. Like I'm one of those people who I'm very social. I'm always talking with my friends. Yep. And so for me, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like I need help from my friends. And like people were just like, I don't even know like what to do right now. So
like,
I think
I just want to go out and party and
right. I think, people are in different stages in their lives. And I think I just like didn't understand that for a while. So I'm like, okay, I need help from my friends. I need comfort from my friends. But some of my friends just like weren't capable of giving that, to themselves, never mind to me at the time.
Exactly. So, and if they can't love themselves, how are they going to love you and support you if they're not doing the same thing for themselves?
So now I'm in a place where like I'm a little bit more understanding of like not everybody's going to be able to give me everything, and I have to be able to give a lot to myself. And I think the situation that's one of the things that I'm so happy that I've grown because of this. That's something that I needed to learn. I think that came from this. But yeah, I think it was hard because I was always the party girl, and like people called me because they wanted to go out and have a good time.
Yeah.
My version of a good time has changed like an insane amount since then. So the people that used to call me to have a good time, they don't call me anymore because they don't think going to get a smoothie and going on a walk is a good time. But like I do. So I think it's been hard.
You could call me. Yeah. I will gladly go get smoothies and go on a walk.
Seriously, I would love that if we were close. Well,
if we were closer, I know.
We might be sometime, but yeah, that's what's been hard, I think, has been now that I have accepted all of that and how many friends I've lost, which was hard because honestly, there were people that I thought were like really, truly my best friends from college that just were like, we can't deal with this negativity, which I understand to a point, but you don't just leave your best friend in the middle of a crisis. And my crisis was kind of long, but I'm doing so much better. And now I can give to them so much more because of how much I've grown during that experience. So I don't know. It's tough because I definitely lost people that I really thought would never do that.
Yeah.
And I've had people delete me on social media when I started sharing about it. I haven't really had an issue with family members, really. Most of my family has been pretty supportive. Honestly, I would have to say my dad was the most supportive during everything because we don't live near each other. I moved to Georgia and he's in Massachusetts. And I think he just didn't know how to help the situation. And so I think
especially he was being so far away.
Yeah. So I would say he was very supportive, my sister as well. So didn't really have an issue with family so much as just other people.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. And I think that as we start to go through these experiences and these obstacles, and then as we start to overcome them, we are leveling up. And as we start to level up, the people beneath us, they're on a completely different vibration, on a completely different frequency where they want to be stuck in that negative frequency and they choose not to level up. And I see it as we're clearing the clutter. We are doing some spring cleaning. And as hard as it is in that moment, once we make room for all the beautiful new clothing that we're going to get in that summer season, we're going to have all of those beautiful relationships that are going to be well worth it. And it's very challenging at first when we are going through losing those friendships, those relationships, especially when you've been friends with people for years, especially your college years. It's like they say, oh, college is the best 4 years of your life. And now when you look back, you have all these pictures with people that you went to parties, to tailgates, to football games with. And now you look back and it's like, apparently those are my best 4 years. But you know what? I'm going to make these next 50 years the best years of my life.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. That's amazing because it's so true. Like I look back and I'm like, I really don't have many friends from college anymore, but that's because I'm literally on a whole different
frequency.
So different. And you know what? I actually work with a intuitive healer, energy healer, and she's my mentor now, actually. So I work with her every week and she taught me something that, some people's souls are just a different frequency. And that doesn't mean they're better or worse, but that just means we're here for different purposes. And so for me, like I've finally come to terms with the fact that I'm just here for something different in this lifetime than maybe some other people. And so
I'm
It
getting
sucks.
the chills.
It sucks. You
No,
are?
I'm literally getting the chills as you're saying this.
So,
yes,
I mean, there's a lot of
what
things
she
I'd
is
love to say,
saying-
but
So what she is saying is 100,000% true. And so how has this led you to your purpose?
yeah. So when this all started happening, eventually I can't even tell you when, I don't remember, but I started sharing on TikTok,
Mhm.
and then I just started getting messages. I really did it because it was just a distraction for me. And like I said, I lost all these friends. So
Yeah.
I needed to connect with people that knew what I was going through, because truly people in real life would think I was crazy, because
Yep.
that's how it is with literally probably a lot of things, but I see it with Lyme so often. Like people just don't think it, people are convinced it's not real. Like
Yep.
people actually think that.
It's true.
So yeah, because what we do in this society is we label things as blanket terms when really the root cause is Lyme. But that's a discussion.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother discussion.
A whole
but-
nother.
So yeah, it's real. Would you prefer I call it depression and anxiety and like lupus, or would you prefer I just call it what it is? Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that those things aren't real, but you know what I'm saying. Like there's a root cause to so many things. So, so I lost a lot of friends. So I needed to connect with people that knew what I was dealing with. So I was making these videos and I started, attracting people with similar situations, and I started having conversations with people. And I realized that leading them, I led a lot of people to a proper diagnosis, I'll just say. And I started to feel like real, true fulfillment from that I'd never really felt before. Like really, truly, I think in the past, like having fun was fulfilling for me because I was vibrating a little bit
lower
over here. And now I'm like, wow, like, okay, if I went through this, at least I can do something good with it. So
exactly.
I think that the whole situation just led me to my purpose in helping others. And I realized how fulfilling it was to help people that were in a similar situation as me, because it was so low and so dark. And I want people to understand, like, yeah, of course, I'm not 100% better by any means, because Lyme comes along with many other health issues.
Yeah.
But like, I started to see the way out. And so I just wanted other people to know that, because like, I just don't want anyone to have to feel how I felt. Exactly. So I think that's when I realized maybe I didn't know exactly what my purpose was, but it was helping other people. And then when I started working with my mentor and my healer, she was able to like more pinpoint some other things, which I'm not going to get into yet because I just like haven't really like shared. But basically I got my IHP certificate that you have. And so like,
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I'm working on level 2 right now, but I did level 1. I finished that. Yes. And so I realized like root cause, like healing is I'm very passionate about holistic and root cause now. So like, I knew that was part of my purpose, and also just kind of exposing like some stuff that goes on, like the way the societies run. Like I really just started breaking free, like slowly.
It's very eye-opening.
It really is. And you can't go back. You're like, I know too much.
Once you dip, it's the same thing when you have that spiritual awakening. Once you dip your toe, it's like once you just dip your toe into astrology.
Yes.
And you get that one crystal. Your entire house turns into
before this.
You should see behind my laptop.
I was actually going to bring my whole little bowl in here, but I was like, I didn't have time to like go through to pick out which
it's like, which crystal do I need today?
I know. But it's so true. Like once you start, like I never thought I would be like into astrology and into like having a spiritual awakening, calling myself crunchy and proud of it. Like I never thought, but like I've realized like all of that is my purpose.
Who you are. And
it's true. And like, the thing is like, I didn't know who I was before because I was conditioned to be somebody.
Yes.
I was conditioned to think partying was the only way to have fun. I was conditioned to think had to go to college, get a good job, which by the way, I do work a 9 to 5 because I haven't gone through with giving services yet for my health coaching, but I will very shortly. And so all of this was meant to happen to me, like as crazy as that sounds, which is hard to talk about sometimes because there's a lot of people online that just aren't there yet, or it's not meant for them to be there. But a lot of people will say like, you know, I would never choose for this to happen to me. Like my soul would never choose it. Do you know about soul contracts and all that? Yep. So, I really started digging into soul contracts. A friend actually told me about them. So I started listening to podcasts, reading books and looking them up. And I'm like, so maybe like this was supposed to happen to me. So I think like all of this pieced together, like really opened my eyes to what my purpose is. And like, I always deep down, like my whole life, I was like, I need to help people. I can't do something that like, I've actually had jobs in not healthcare related, which is I went to school for to do something in healthcare because I thought that was the only way to help people was Western medicine healthcare. And so I actually had a job. My first job out of college was not in that because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, this is the most unfulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. I think I had worked that job for like 6 months. And
hey, you lasted longer than I did.
Wow. No one ever says that.
3 days. I worked at a bridal shop for 3 days. Worked at an acai bowl place for 3 days. Could not cut bananas. Gosh. I was cutting bananas for 8 hours. Could not do that. That was the end of
at
my.
At least it was food. Healthy food. I mean,
it was the end of my food industry career.
That's all right. I think you ended up where you need to be.
So exactly. Okay. Somehow we all end up where we are supposed to be with the right people at the right time.
I know. And so, yeah. And so I've also always been a person who, okay, for starters, I'm an Aquarius. I don't know if you know much about Aquarius, but like, I'm not like your tip. You are?
No, I'm not an Aquarius, but I do know about
very like, I just don't fit into, and I've always been like that, but I think I've been forcing myself, like go to college, get a job. I went back and got a master's.
Always done the right thing.
Why did I do that? I mean, I don't like to do regrets, but like, I don't like regret it, but I'm like, why did I get a master's? Like, I just thought like, that's what I needed to do to get a good job, to work for the rest of my life. Yeah. But deep down, like that's never been me. I'm a little bit eccentric, like out of the box. Like I don't fit into normal people molds. And so I think just like finally, really recently when I started working with my mentor, I've been able to like accept that. And I'm like, okay, I don't even want to be like everybody else. Like, this is okay. Cause I think for a while I was really trying to get back to like my normal healthy self. So I could like go out and have drinks with friends and be normal and just like fit into a normal society, because I don't know, there was just like my ego still wanted that. Yeah. And also that's what people wanted from me. I think like people made me feel like
they wanted the old you back.
Right. And if I could start doing that again, then like I would gain a lot of friends back, not necessarily friends I lost, but I would make new friends. But now I've finally come to terms that like I have, like this all ties into my purpose, because when I realized that my purpose was just different, then like I was able to really accept like, okay, I'm just different. Like, and I should actually really like that. And I do now. I truly love it, but it took me a lot to get there. But yes, my purpose is just overall blanket term to help others heal and help others realize that like there is more than just here's an antibiotic.
Exactly. I love that. That is so beautiful. And I always, it's hard when I hate to say, oh, things are hard. It's challenging when we are going through these obstacles because we don't have those answers. We want to get better. And going through either autoimmune diseases, Lyme disease, at first it's like, oh, it's just like a cold. I'll be better in 2 days, when really it's not, it's years. Right. And honestly, just within the last year has when I have finally got my life back, have finally felt like, I don't want to say like myself, because I don't even remember what I felt like before I got sick.
Yeah.
Because now once you are healthy, it's a completely different ball game. And then throw in all that spirituality and feeling fulfilled. It's just, everything is just amplified. So when you can get here and get to this point, it is so rewarding, and it makes the entire journey worth every second.
Absolutely. And yes, that's so relatable for me, because sometimes I do think back and I'm like, oh, maybe I am feeling like my old self. And like, I don't really remember.
I don't.
I mean, granted, I went through a lot of trauma the last couple of years and, you know, memory loss too. And so, but I can't really pinpoint, like there's such a big difference between then and now that I'm like, I can't really relate to the old me anymore either. So
Amen. I love that. So what would you say to anyone who is going through this sort of journey?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things.
If you could pick
Yeah.
Pick three. Let's pick three.
Pick three.
Three.
Okay. Because
Three pieces of advice.
Because I think there's so many different elements, like
Mhm.
physically, emotionally, like spiritually. So it's kind of hard to just pick one out of all
So
three.
let's do one for the mind, body, and soul.
Okay. So one for the mind, I would say this could also go for soul, but I'll pick it for mind. I would say really take a look at your support system, and that is going to help your mind, because let me tell you, I went crazy thinking like it just ate up so much of my time, and really I think it didn't help my healing journey to constantly be thinking about like who's there for me. I'm losing all these friends. I think just being open-minded to the fact that things are going to change, and just looking for your support system and understanding that it's going to change would be, I know that's hard, and it's just something you have to experience to really
get through
probably
it.
know what I'm saying, but just take that for what it is right now. And then for
the body,
I think just resting, and also like understanding it's not going to be a quick fix. So like giving your body grace. Like I'm telling you right now, I'm experiencing joint pain sitting here, like because I still have, some things going on. So, but I'm not like freaking out about it. And that really does tie into mind, but it's about my physical body. I think just understanding that like the goal isn't really to be 100%. The goal is to be balanced and be able to live a life that you love and enjoy. So yeah, I think just like aiming towards living in alignment is something that I've been doing for my soul that I wish I had thought about earlier. And honestly, that's something that just comes when it comes, because everyone's timing on a spiritual journey is different. But I think, like I was saying earlier, I tried to force myself to be normal. And the second, only a few months ago, I started like living in alignment and accepting that this is just who I am now. And I can't listen to the outside noise is when I saw improvements in every aspect, mind, body, and soul. I'm not even kidding, even physically. I mean, I very much understand the aspect of like emotional and energetic ties to physical too. But I mean, I really saw it recently when I started really living in alignment with myself. I saw changes in every aspect.
I love that. That is so beautiful. I am so happy for you. And even though it was hard, it was a hard journey, but you're vibrating at a completely different frequency where healing is truly, truly happening each and every day.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, it's going to continue, and that's
exactly.
That's totally
Just
fine.
Keep living in alignment, keep doing what your soul inspires and calls you to do each day, because you will be led the most beautiful life with blessings upon blessings upon blessings.
Exactly.
So before we wrap up, I have two last questions that I ask every guest that come on. So the first one is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given and you want to share?
Oh, that's good.
Sorry.
Can you like,
I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. Okay.
I might need to think for a minute.
We'll come back to that one. So the last one, or the second to last one, is, so Essence is a huge part of my brand. We have Sono Essence, which is the skincare brand. Then we have I Am Essence, our podcast, and then Sono Essence Healing, which is where I work with clients one-on-one. How would you define Essence, and what makes up your essence?
Oh, how would I define essence? Probably just the way of being and way of life, and just what you're putting out and what you're vibrating and radiating to the world. I would say currently my essence is very much just healing. Like I just feel like I put off a healing vibe to others, and I'm trying to always be like kind and nurturing person, which is just not really what people would probably have described me as a few years ago. So I really am trying to embrace that side of me. And yeah, honestly, healing. I just really truly feel like I'm a healer, and that is what my essence is. That's it.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So now back to
I just think first.
Yeah.
I should have had you send me these ones. I didn't know. Because I feel like I have stuff, especially from my mentor. I feel like she tells me so much good stuff. Well, I saw this quote recently, and I've really been thinking about it, and I love it, but it's not really advice, but I will say it just touched me in a way that was, kind of turned into advice for me. And it was when your journey is more difficult, it's because your calling is higher. And so, no, that's not directly advice, but I think it really helped. That's like really something that shifted my mindset. So I think just that really ties into this whole conversation and might help, you know, people listening shift their mindset to understand you're going through a tough journey, but it's quite literally because you are here to do something things. Yes, something completely out of the ordinary. So hopefully that will be helpful.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, I can't thank you enough for being here on I Am Essence, sharing your story. And I am so excited to see where you end up and the rest of your purpose, your passion. And I can't thank you enough for being here.
No, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
So welcome. Thank you everyone for listening in on this week's episode here at I Am Essence. Don't forget to listen in next Wednesday on your favorite podcast platform. And if you are listening in on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review and we will see you next week.